Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and today we're on the free-to-play account and we will be tuning House Dimir. As a quick intro, we have the TLC approach to our videos, tuning, ladder, and crafting. We've done a crafting video on mono red, we've done one ladder video, although we'll do many more later once we've gone over all the different decks. And this is a tuning video, taking the intro decks that you are given and adjusting it and making it a little bit better and more competitive so that you can win more games, complete more quests, and learn more about the great world of Magic the Gathering. So this House Dimir deck is going to be a fun one to tune. I always love Dimir strategies. But before we do, we're going to jump into packs and open the packs that we've accumulated from doing our daily quests for the last week. So we've got 7 core set packs sitting around. Some of the cards might help our Dimir deck, so we're definitely going to check that out. For you to, so that you at home have a reference, we're several weeks in, about 2 months into this process. So we have opened a lot of packs from our daily and weekly rewards, which is where a lot of the cards that we're going to tune our deck come from. If you are just starting your quest, then don't worry. You'll be opening more and better cards in the future to keep adding to your decks. The important part is the thought process between finding cards that play well with the cards you already have. And that's what I'm here to try to show you. Also, if you have a different deck that you want to watch, you don't have to watch these in order. You can jump around and look up the color combination that you're more interested in, or just watch the whole series on the Young CGB channel here on YouTube. Enough intro nonsense. Let's crack these packs. I know the anticipation is killing you. You probably didn't hear a word I said. The Warden of Evo Isle is something we already had a few copies of, but creatures with flying costing 1 less can be a good synergy if we get enough flyers. And a Temple of Triumph is a scry land, a dual land that produces red and white that we will definitely use later. Active Treason, we've got an uncommon wild card, we've had enough unsummons and Gifts of Paradise, and here is Kaikar, the Wind's Fury. This is a Jeskai card, blue, red, and white mythic. It's an okay card. It goes in a spell-heavy deck like our Is It Guild deck that we've already tuned. So if we ever play some Jeskai, we'll give Kaikar a showing. Looking around, we see an uncommon wild card and another Scryland, a Temple of Epiphany. We always need more of these Scrylands. They make our mana bases so much better later. We have Ember Hauler, which we already had, Bloodthirsty Aerialist, a rare wild card, which you never complain about, as we keep stockpiling our rare wild cards up here in the corner. Eventually, we'll do another crafting video where we use those rare and mythic wild cards to get some cards to create a more competitive deck. Here's a Goblin Ringleader, which might be good in a red deck. And the Scheming Symmetry is a double tutor card. This card, you can combo ways to make this work, and maybe we'll get into that someday, but don't get too excited about this card. A lot of people want to run this card just to do it. When you let your opponent tutor as well, that's not a good use of a card for the most part. You need a way to make this work for you. Next up, we've got a Nightpack Ambusher, which is a wonderful green rare. Flash, other wolves, and werewolves get +1/+1. Spooky. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, create a 2/2 green wolf token. Very strong card. We're definitely going to see it in a different deck, but we're working on Dimir today, so we're still looking for some sweet black or blue card to round out our day. Brought Back is a double white card. It will not be that card. This is a very niche spell that you can't use too often. So not a ton of great cracks from the packs, but I know we've opened some sweet Dimir cards over the last few weeks, so I know I have plenty to work with tuning-wise. When I look at House Dimir, I think manipulation, I think disruption, I think spells that do really annoying things to the opponent. In this particular version, they're giving us a bit of a Surveil theme. Cards like Thoughtbound Phantasm say that whenever you Surveil, you get to grow your Thoughtbound Phantasm, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And if you get this up to a 5/5, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Then we have a number of Surveil cards of various power Night Veil Sprite is only a 1/2 flyer with a little bit of Surveil ability. Unexplained Disappearance is like Unsummon, returning a creature to owner's hand, but with a Surveil tacked on. Surveil lets you, by the way, look at the top card of your library, choose whether or not you like it, and put it in the graveyard or back on top. So a little bit of selection. And then there's one Thought Erasure, which is definitely the best Surveil card that we could have, and the most annoying, which takes a card directly from the opponent's hand. One Disinformation Campaign, which works with Surveil as well. So we're looking at a lot of Surveil. So we'll definitely keep an eye out for any other Surveil cards, but I'm also looking for more control. There isn't much removal here. Blue-black isn't usually a beat-down color, an attacking color. It is more of a control the board color. So I'm going to be looking for all kinds of things that draw cards and remove things. I'll start off with an Opt. It doesn't Surveil, but it is a lot cheaper than most of the Surveil cards and helps us draw the right things. Pteramander might be good if we have a number of spells and a number of ways to put them in the graveyard, so I'm going to keep Pteramander in mind. I don't know if I'm supposed to take Spectral Sailor in a deck like this. It doesn't seem right. But Thoughtbound Phantasm's third copy does, if we stick with the Surveil theme, that is. I like Aggro Bolus. If we end up with a ton of spells, which most of my Dimir decks do, I'm going to enjoy it. But already we're seeing a divide between do we want a ton of spells or do we want a bunch of little creatures that Surveil. Some people like the Surveil side of things. I like the spell side of things. I like to be more of a spell deck, personally. We'll see how it goes. Looking around, we have some counters in Disdainful Stroke and a sort of counter in Lazotep Plating that gives all of our permanents hexproof. Things like that could go really well in the control version of the deck, along with Negate. There is a third Night Veil Sprite if we want to go down the road where we stay aggressive. Now, in the Izzet Guild, we learned that the Izzet Guild was much better aggressive than controlling. Man, I have trouble giving up on Dimir. Dimir is one of the premier control color combinations. I think that since the deck kind of sends you in this direction of surveilling, we'll probably try that deck first. But then I have two Mu Yanlings, which I was lucky enough to open in my packs, which are Mythic Planeswalkers for only 3 mana. I certainly want to try those in the deck. Chemist's Insight certainly goes in the control-y version along with Jace, which is it's very much more my style, but I just don't know if I have the cards to play the control-y version. I'm going to add everything for now. There's going to be a million cards in here. I do love playing Dimir, both in every form. So I'm going to add all these powerful cards like Jace and Cavalier of Gales, even if I end up cutting them later because I don't have the right cards to play them. Agent of Treachery, stealing the opponent's things, sounds wonderful. Precognitive Perception, drawing more cards, sounds wonderful. Mass Manipulation, to steal all their things, sounds good, but it's too much mana. I've got to stop somewhere. Duress, to knock more cards out of their hand, is very Dimir. Disfigure, killing small creatures, very Dimir. Yes, yes, yes. As we continue to look around, a few cards I might notice along the way. Nothing really here, but we might need some good old-fashioned Moida. We might need a few Moida spells to just kill that imposing creature. All right. Don't ask about that accent. Just pretend you never heard that. Let's move on as if it didn't happen. So one cool deck that you can build with Dimir is Reanimator, bringing back cards like Agent of Treachery. If we have enough giant creatures, that's another deck we could build out of Dimir. And as you can see, I love that we have all these options, different ways to build the deck. Cavalier of Night's a very good card. If we have the triple black and we have creatures to sacrifice, this card can be a total boss. We have another Doom Whisperer, which is amazing. We also have Bolas' Citadel, which I've thrown in every black deck, because in these kind of games, if we end up in games with either control decks or other medium to slow decks, the Citadel can just win the game out of nowhere. We've seen it with my other builds, so let's consider it here as well. You should always replace your Dimir Guildgates, or at least some of them, with Dismal Backwater, because it gains a life. Dimir Guildgate does not. So this is a strict upgrade to the Guildgate. They put the Guildgates in your deck automatically, but the Dismal Backwater lands, which you should have access to, are strictly better. Third Discovery Dispersal works well with our Surveil theme or our Control theme, so I'm adding that for certain. We have a sweet card called Thief of Sanity that steals cards from the opponent. It's so good. Tomebound Lich is an excellent Dimir card. Death Touch lifelink when it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card, then discard a card. This is good card selection, fills your graveyard. Great in the Reanimator build as well. So let's add that for now. Connive Concoct has a Surveil and get things out of the graveyard function, as well as stealing small creatures. It's a very good card for the deck. Unmoored Ego can take up to 4 cards out of an opponent's deck. This is an odd card that many people love. There is a kind of a weird fandom around the card. People don't want to see the downside, which is that it doesn't affect the board, and even if you hit a card in the opponent's hand, they get to draw a card in addition. You can't have too much of this in your deck, but I might play with one of them today just because I know how much people love it. Any artifacts that play with our strategy? If we play Reanimator, we might want a Meteor Golem, but other than that, I don't see it. Other than that, I don't see any artifacts that really play with our strategy. Do we have any Dimir Lockets? It would be over here, right? Yeah, it would be with the cards. We do not. All right, 100 cards. All right, hit submit, good to go. Just kidding. Let's actually tune our deck a little bit. So, looking it over, there's some cards that I consider weak right away and I'm going to take out. Whether or not you agree with me, I'm probably not going to talk too deeply about them. I'm just going to cut some things. Whispering Snitch I find to be a very weak card, even in the Surveil version, so I'm cutting that. House Guild Mage, going to cut that as well. Blood Operative, if we keep the Surveil deck, I might give it a try, but it is a pretty weak card. Whisper Agent, pretty weak card. Artful Takedown, overpriced for removal. Just Moideth something already. Etrata the Silencer. This is a very fun rare, and I think I'll keep it around. But it's not a great rare, but it's pretty fun. So yeah, we'll just keep you on deck. Deadly Visit, very overpriced to destroy something, even with the Surveil. Cavalier of Gales, Cavalier of Night, and Doom Whisperer. I think we have to pick some. This is too many 5-drops for almost any build. I'm going to cut the Perception, at least for now, and we'll see what happens. City Watch Sphinx, very overpriced. Don't really want to play with you. What are we running? 29 land. We can certainly trim that some. Unclear how many Guild Gates and Dismal Backwaters I want to run. Maybe somewhere around 7 I can get away with. 7 or 8 has been what I've been trying out in the land department. So 23 land, so 24, 25. We can, I think, roll with 25. We have cards that draw cards like Opt, and we have cards that surveil into drawing cards like Discovery. So I think 25 land will be okay. Now I have to decide if I have the right build for a creature version or for a control version. And I don't think I have the right build for a control version. For a control version, we want cards like Ritual of Soot and Cry of the Canarium that wipe out multiple creatures of our opponents, because otherwise we won't be able to keep up with their action. So with that in mind, we're going to play a more aggressive version. And if we're playing a more aggressive version, we can start cutting some of the more control-y cards. Disfigure is one of those. Duress is one of those. Augur of Bolas is a control-y card. You don't want too many creatures in a deck with Augur of Bolas because it's less likely to find what it needs to. Counter spells are very control-y, as is Lazatap Plating. 3 negates I still might want to run to protect my board state. Once we get a little bit ahead, we would love to stay ahead, and negate can certainly do that. But I don't think we want 3. 2 might be the most that we want. Unexplained Disappearance is a Surveil card, but it's kind of a bad Surveil card. At most, I'd want 1. I'll probably want 0. Terramander is a nice big flyer at a low price after we've put a bunch of spells into our graveyard. I don't know how that's going to play out with all the things we're going to have in our deck. Chemister's Insight is a control card. Jace is a control card, so those can get trimmed for certain. Cavalier of Night, Cavalier of Gales, and Doom Whisperer can all be excellent attackers. And I still love the Bolas' Citadel. I'm going to try to keep it around, but Agent of Treachery is too expensive now and can be cut. Let's look at our mana curve up here. It can help tell you where you need to adjust things. And right now we have a lot of 3-drops and a lot of 2-drops. So if we're cutting things, those are probably the spots that most need a trim. Tomebound Lich I don't think is on par with the power level of other cards, although it's a very nice filler card that does well. We can trim that. Do we need this many Connive Concocts? The original deck comes with 1. Do we actually want to? It is a very strong card, and it can, at the 5 mana spot, can keep getting these back. But since it usually is a 5 mana card, we want to be careful about having too many, so I will trim one of them. Sometimes it helps to take a look at the card in the different layouts. I find it easier to edit the deck from here, but here you can move cards around. And these cards are put over here because they appear to have a high casting cost, but now I can place them in the spots I expect to cast them. I expect to cast Concoct more than Connive, so this functions like a 7-drop, just like I expect to cast Discovery more than Dispersal, so it functions as a 2-drop, which shows me that I have a lot more 2-drops than I probably need. I am going to cut the Pteramander in favor of keeping Surveil cards in the deck. I think we'll trim an Opt. I still like the idea of using Mu Yanling as a cool way to get ahead. It doesn't quite work with Surveil, but it's a very powerful Planeswalker. I do want all of these cards. They're just so strong that maybe I don't even want Concoct. Getting cards back out of the graveyard and surveilling is nice, but only when you have really powerful cards in your graveyard. Cavalier of Gales shuffles itself back in. Doom Whisperer and Cavalier of Night would be nice to get back, but we also have just more of them in the deck. So I don't think I even need you. Then I look further along the way and we have the 3 sprites, 3 phantasms, 2 spy bugs. It's an interesting situation. I will cut one of the disappearance. It's been on my chopping block for a while. I also find Mission Briefing a very slow card and the mana to be very awkward, but it can be good later in the game, so we'll give it a shot. We'll give it a chance. Nightveil Predator and Etrata are both cards I really want to run because they feel very good and Dimir-like to me. Now, one thing about this deck is we don't have much life gain. We have the Cavalier of Night has lifelink and the Blood Operative has lifelink, so maybe I'm better than I thought I was. It was giving me reasons to cut the Citadel, which I really don't want to do anyway. So I decided that the negates have to go. We're basically tapping out every turn if we're playing our game well. Thoughtbound Phantasm, Nightveil Sprite, something like Disinformation Campaign or Notion Rain, 4-drop, 5-drop. We're never holding up mana for negate, and you kind of have to price that in if you want to play with counter spells. And so now, breaking it down to our final cut, should probably be a 3-drop because of our curve. Which 3-drop should it be? I really want to cut the Unmoored Ego, but I know that card makes some people very happy, so I want to give the people a little of what they want. But the honest truth is that you should keep this card in your sideboard, and that you shouldn't use it too often. I know you want me to play this card, and it might even steal a game, because some decks are just so fragile to having a key card exiled. So I am going to keep it in for some of you out there just screaming at the screen. I can almost hear you from here. I'm going to cut the Opt. I have Discovery to adjust and kind of smooth out my draws. Opt doesn't really fit into my curve anywhere well. So this is what we're going to roll with. Let's sleeve up. I said let's sleeve up. I don't know why it does that sometimes. And I'm pretty excited to play this deck. Let's go see what happens. We have a turn 3 Thief of Sanity on the play, which can be good enough all on its own. We also have an Unmoored Ego if we do happen to play against an Esper control deck or Scapeshift deck and want to take away, say, their Teferi or their Hydroid Crassus or their Field of the Dead. This hand will do nicely. Let's lead with the Guildgate. One question that I'm going to have is if I don't draw land on my next draw step, do I play the Sprite or the Discovery to make sure I curve out? That is, cast my Thief of Sanity when I want to. Our opponent opens with Duress. They're probably going to take some of that option away from me. Do they take the Discovery away from me? No, they take Unmoored Ego. The fear of the ego is so much. So, play this, play this. It's a tough call. Here's the thing. If I expected my Thief of Sanity to live, I would play the Discovery. But I don't. Our opponent led with a Duress. It implies that they're playing Grixis Control or Rakdos with a bunch of removal spells. It's going to be very hard to hit the opponent with the Thief of Sanity because it is just a 2/2 and dies to a lot of spells. So, I'm going to play the Nightveil Sprite. Maybe the Nightveil Sprite will get hit by a removal spell, making it more possible for the Thief of Sanity to get there. Let's see what happens. It is Grixis. A pair of rare lands to open the game, and they say go. So I could Thought Erasure now. If the opponent has a removal spell, they might fire it off on the Sprite, though. The fact that they waited tells me that they want to see what I do before they cast the removal spell. So I'm going to attack with the Sprite first, because they might take the damage and give me the Surveil rather than kill the Sprite if I do things this way. Ooh, I can't afford to draw that card right now, which is too bad. Such a powerful card. Here it comes. Well, now that I've already surveilled, you shouldn't kill the Sprite now. It's just 1 damage. Alright, our opponent ran their timer completely to 0 on no timeouts and took the hit from the Sprite, which is interesting. I could Thought Erasure them here. I actually don't think I want to. I think I want to use the Discovery to hit my land drop. I don't want to fall behind on mana. And I'm really happy to see 2 lands here. Take the Swamp first, just because I like having nice even mana on the battlefield. And this sets us up well for next turn. Our opponent plays a Watery Grave tapped, and it looks like they plan to pass the turn again. So, without question, fully formed Grixis deck, playing super cautiously. This is going to be a very tough game. You know when they have the wings on their cat, and the card sleeves, and all the rares, that your free-to-play deck is in trouble. But that doesn't mean that we can't try to give it a go. So again, just like last turn, let's attack with our Sprite first, because the opponent wants something better, a better target for whatever removal spell they're holding. And let's try to keep from giving it to them. There's a Moo. That is a very solid Planeswalker to play here. And I think what I want to do this turn is use the Notion Rain to draw into the Moo and try to keep getting land drops. It would be really nice to play the Cavalier of Gales next turn. I don't feel like I need a Thought Erasure right now. I know that the opponent's holding a removal spell. I know that Nicol Bolas is a 5-mana spell. That's probably what I want to hit most. And I know that the opponent wants to save their removal for my Thief of Sandy, so let's use the Notion Rain and keep getting ahead on cards, keep building resources. Notion Rain, Notion Rain. And our opponent finally broke down, played the Tyrant Scorn there. I definitely want the land and the Moo. Very happy to have both. That way we can play a Cavalier of Gales next turn, or a Thought Erasure into a Mu Yanling. Both can be pretty good plays. And it looks like our opponent hasn't drawn land, which you're telling me there's a chance. All right, let's lead with Thought Erasure and then see what happens. See if we can find a weakness in this hand. So we see 2 Essence Scatters. We can't cast a creature or it will be countered, but we can make these very awkward, so we have to play them carefully. The Bedevil is particularly strong. It can wipe out Mu Yanling, but at instant speed, so we definitely don't want that. Angrass Rampage can make us sacrifice it, but the opponent would have to tap mana on their turn, and if they don't draw the right land, they may not be able to leave up an Essence Scatter. So the right card to take here is the Bedevil. If we take the Bedevil away, we can try to force our opponent into a situation where they have to tap mana on their turn to remove Mu, and then we can resolve one of our creatures. We'll use the +2 ability because there isn't another ability, and next turn we can make a 4/4. So if the opponent doesn't draw the right land right now and play this Angrass Rampage, okay. Very interesting that the opponent didn't even remove the Mu Yanling, and now they have a negate in their hand. We have to make these counters awkward as we can. So Cavalier of Gales, not very good against Narset. The draw 3 won't really work. Notion Rain, not good against Narset. So that Narset is going to be very annoying, but we can play these out. Our opponent has a Ritual Soot. If they draw the land for the Ritual Soot, that's very good for them, but if they don't, they're in a lot of trouble. And the Narset whiffs. That's probably a bunch of land to the bottom. And the opponent didn't draw the land. They play another Narset. This is spiraling away from the Grixis player. They have all these great cards in their deck, but they don't have land. In this spot, in this moment, they've been unable to find land. So, submit 0. We don't want to shrink our own creatures. Thief of Sanity will attack here because of the trigger to steal cards from the opponent. And this will kill the Narset so that we can use our Cavalier of Gales.
My mind needs a rest.
And what do we take? Our only good choice is the Ritual of Soot. Might tilt the opponent to see 2 lands go in the graveyard, though, when they need them. Alright, so we could play the Phantasm. Our opponent is definitely going to play Ritual of Soot as soon as they can anyway, which kind of eats the Phantasm. Let's play the Cavalier of Gales while the opponent can't counter it. And it also doesn't die to Ritual of Soot. So we have to put 2 cards on top of our deck. I'm going to put these 2 on top. I don't want the opponent to take the Doom Whisperer with a Thought Erasure type effect. And I'm going to put the Phantasm under the Doom Whisperer, so if I want to, I can Surveil away the Phantasm. And now we'll play the tapped Guildgate and say go. This card just stays in exile. The opponent doesn't know what it is. It just sits there if we ever want to use it, which we don't, because we're not blowing up our own creatures. And the opponent, without ever finding their land, got defeated. Quick rant. Many people in Magic complain about the mana system. The fact that there is RNG and sometimes you just don't draw your lands, or the wrong color of lands, or too many lands. An important part of that is what you saw in this game. The idea that a free-to-play deck without all those rares and mythics has a chance against a deck full of rares and mythics. The fact that you can pay to play with really good cards, which is close to pay to win, but you can't guarantee you're going to win. Sometimes you put in that money and you still lose to the free-to-play player who has a better curve than you do and lines up their spells well. So, just something to keep in mind. It is one of the side effects of the mana system, and I know you don't like it when you get mana screwed, but if you're a free-to-play player and you steal some games from a fully formed Grixis deck, you're probably not feeling bad about it. Our opening hand it's on the draw, so it could be slow, but we are curving into Moo and Murder. And there are plenty of situations where that's very good. We have both Cavaliers and the mana set up to cast almost both of them. We'll need another blue. Seems pretty likely, though. Also, we have Watergrave, best land in our deck. God bless you. Scoured Barrens to gain a life. Well, we can match you. Now we're tied again. Never back down, never surrender. Leonin Vanguard. So we might be facing that classic life beatdown deck. They try to heal and attack at the same time. Can be a strong deck if you can't remove the key pieces. We have 1 Murder. Might work out. Angel of Vitality becomes a 4/4 flyer if our opponent has 25 life or more, and whenever they would gain life, they gain bonus life. It's an interesting card. What do we do? Do we get Moo online? Do we murder this? Our opponent's very priced into playing another creature to activate the Vanguard. I want to see what that creature is. So my plan is to play Murder this turn and keep this Vanguard from activating because they gain a life if they have 3 or more creatures. So let's pass the turn and hold the Murder open. Let's hope it's an Ajani's Pridemate. Those are the creatures that are the strongest in this style of deck, and the thing I would most like to see murdered. God, that sounds mean, but I think you understand. And it is a Sorin. So Sorin gives all creatures lifelink, a +2 does a gain and drain. With that in mind, we're just going to end up murdering this Angel of Vitality. And gosh, if I do it now, the Sorin will bring it back and it will attack this next turn. But if I don't do it now, the opponent gains all that life. This is a tough situation. I suppose the Sorin minusing isn't the worst thing that could happen to me, but we're way behind. Probably well out of the driver's seat. Our deck isn't well built to attack Planeswalkers because, quite honestly, beating Planeswalkers directly with spells is something that you need a lot of rare wild cards to do most of the time, unless you play mono red, which is one of the reasons I like the mono red deck in free to play. And here is Soren bringing back the Angel. Now we'll play Moo. Moo will try to keep this Angel from hurting us too bad. And we'll say go, but the opponent has 3 good permanents, and we have a very vulnerable Planeswalker. And that's really mean. Oath of Kaya will deal 3 damage, allowing the Vanguard to finish Moo, plus the Angel grows to a 2/4 now, because the opponent has over 25 life. We still might have the biggest thing going with the Cavalier of Gales, and that's our hope, is that our big Cavalier of Gales is stronger than the opponent, and that they don't have a good way to kill it. I'm not optimistic, because our opponent would likely play another creature if they had it, which tells me these are likely Mortify's ways to kill things. So, Cavalier Knight could come down. It's a 4/5 lifelink. Without another creature to sacrifice, we can't use it to kill something. So I'm going to lead with the Cavalier of Gales and try to find a creature that we can play with the Cavalier of Night. A Thoughtbound Phantasm would be great because we could play it next turn. We don't find that. We find a Trotta. Our opponent could run Duress. I think the card I want the least is Notion Rain, and we could have a Discovery Dispersal on top. So we'll sort it like this, in case we want to throw that Notion Rain away. If our opponent kills the Cavalier of Gales, it does shuffle our deck, which is not great, because we lose those and we keep these lands, but I still think it's an okay idea. We'll see. Prison Realm. Well, that will exile the Cavalier, so the deck isn't getting shuffled. And the opponent gets to scry. Okay, they scry to the bottom. Means that their next card isn't, well, scripted. And that's game over. We can't beat that card. So Resplendent Angel is going to make an additional Angel every time the opponent gains 5 or more life. They're easily gaining more life than that. Mythic Rare, rotating, thank God I'm so sick of this card. But I'm sick of a lot of the cards. I know it sounds salty. I'm sick of a lot of the cards. Just because we've been playing them for what seems like a year now. If we had a Ritualist Soot, we'd be in a really good spot. A Ritualist Soot could clean up this whole board, but we don't really have that in our deck yet. It might be worth crafting, we'll see. Keeping the Thoughtbound Phantasm to go with a Cavalier of Night, but we're dead. We can play out a Trotta to do nothing, but getting attacked in the air is going to finish the game. As this one, our hand was tremendously slow. Our opponent had Planeswalkers on curve, and they had answers to each creature and Planeswalker that we had, trying to get us into a good situation. Just never really in this game. Our opponent's slow rolling us. I'm not sure why, so I'm going to leave. I don't know why they're holding back on winning the game there. Well, we can keep this hand. It has our early creature and some removal spells and a big creature. The thing is, we don't have black mana. We can hope that Discovery will find it. I often keep hands like these. For one thing, it's unranked. I don't have a lot to lose. If I don't find black mana, I'll concede and play a new game. But two, most of the time you find it. A good amount of the time, you will find the black mana when you dig deeper into the deck. So you have to take these chances occasionally. Plus we get this sweet Surveil, Thoughtbound into Surveil curve to try to show you at least a little bit of the Surveil experience that's been missing from our deck so far. Temple Garden. Another basic island off the top is very unideal. Let's go for a Swamp or a Black Source. There's a Black Source, and Domination. Complete and utter domination. Hey, you're doing your quests. This happens sometimes. This hand has some Surveil and the early Surveil drops and some stronger later cards that can act as removal. So we'll give it a try. It's on the draw, so it's slow. And we're going to start behind once again to a Leonin Vanguard. Interesting to see where this game goes from here. Next turn, it's likely the Sprite. You want the Sprite to come off Summoning Sickness and then Surveil and set up growing the Spybug. Our opponent, let's see how many creatures they can play. Tithe Taker. This is a 2/1 with Afterlife, so it makes a spirit when it dies. And if we cast spells on our opponent's turn, they cost an additional mana to cast. So here's the sprite. See if the opponent has even more creatures. They have a Prison Realm, so they're just going to lock the sprite down in jail. Give the sprite no quarter. And scry to the top, which is likely a creature, because they want their Vanguard to grow. It won't do that unless they play another creature. We were pretty fortunate to pull a land off the top. Let's go ahead and play our own Nightveil sprite here, number 2. Try to set up those Surveils. And the opponent with another Tithe Taker. Okay. And another Vanguard. Yeah. They're doing a good job at just throwing a whole bunch of creatures on the battlefield. And my free-to-play account doesn't have that sweeper that we talked about, Ritual of Soot, Cry of the Canarium. We just don't own those cards. So we can't punish the opponent, but you can see why I like control decks. I really want to punish players like this who play a whole bunch of creatures, just throw them on the board. I want to kill them all. I really want to. And that's, unfortunately, those cards are usually rare. All right, so Nightveil Sprite here will get us a Surveil, which will grow the Spybug. And I do want that Swamp. I want to play a Cavalier of Night next turn. It sucks, but I think I pay 2 life here to keep growing the Spybug by casting Discovery Dispersal. I'm down to 10, which is pretty low, but the Cavaliers can bring us back. Let's keep the Thief of Sanity as well. We might actually get to hit somebody with this card if life goes perfectly. And now we have a 3/3 Flying Menace to hopefully block and buy us a little time, and a Cavalier of Night, which has lifelink, so whenever it deals damage, we gain life back, which can have a big influence on the battlefield if we get to play it. Plus, if we sacrifice a creature when we play the Cavalier, we kill something. Well, our opponent's still not interested in us doing anything cool. They're just going to take out all of our threats and all of our cards. Let's hope they're out of these effects now. Otherwise, their draw is just too good. We're just not good enough. So I want to sacrifice my Sprite, for sure, and kill one of the Vanguards. So I'm going to attack with the Sprite first before I make that play. If the opponent has one more removal spell, we cannot win. The game will end. It will be sad. Disinformation Campaign is a lovely card, but it's too slow. In this matchup, it is a very slow card, and we can't be running it. So here's the Cavalier. Sacrificing our Nightveil Sprite, destroying the Vanguard. And now you might say, CGB, they're going to hit you for 4, even if you have the Cavalier. Well, the lifelink gains the 4 back. The opponent plays Gideon Blackblade, a powerful Planeswalker. Which, yeah, that's scary. That ain't good. This will make... what are you going to give this? Vigilance Indestructible. Okay. And everybody's attacking, so we can block here. I think this is a big mistake by the opponent. I don't think they know how this is going to work. I'm going to kill their Vanguard and gain 4 life. They're going to hit me for 4, I go back to 4. Then I can attack their Gideon and kill their Gideon and gain 4 life. This is a key turn where, see that 0 goes back to 4. It's a key turn where knowing how the magic works can really hurt you. Unfortunately for us, Gideon is on 5, which is something I did forget for a hot second there. We only get 1 play this turn. We want to make sure we make it good. But I've got a plan. We're going to attack the opponent with the Cavalier of Night and gain that 4 life while cutting Gideon down to just a lowly 1 health, 1 loyalty. We're going to play the other Cavalier of Night. We're going to sacrifice the first Cavalier of Night. And did you know that Cavalier of Night has even more text on it? When it dies, you return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. And we're going to destroy one of these Tithe Takers. Unfortunately, the opponent gets a 1/1 flyer, which is very frustrating. But we come out with 4 life. We have another Cavalier of Night on the board. We destroyed one of their Tithe Takers. And now we have a Nightveil Sprite to get back to Surveillance. Oh no, it's a Johnny's Pride Mate. Whenever our opponent gains life, +1/+1 counter. The last deck didn't even need this to roll us with their life gain beats. Now this one is playing a Johnny's Pride mate. Let's see what happens. Cavalier of Night can still block the Gideon very well. The Flyer doesn't block the Nightveil Sprite very well. I don't think the opponent has a good attack here. So they gave lifelink to the Flyer, and they're going to attack with it? This is a very bad attack. We can block here and gain 4 life. We can block here. The opponent loses their Flyer, gains 1. They grow their Pride Mate, but that's not a big accomplishment. And our 4 life is probably much more useful. Oh, wait. Okay, really quick note. We don't gain the life, because Gideon prevents all damage dealt to it. I've actually experienced this before, but it's easy to forget. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to Gideon. This only gains you the life when it actually deals the damage. So we didn't gain any life there. Not that bad of an attack from the opponent. I was judgy. I was wrong. So now we have Murder available, which is likely hitting the Pride Mate. We have Nightveil Sprite attacking the Gideon. Maybe we want to attack with the Cavalier as well to make sure we gain that life. The opponent will just block with one of these that make tokens, though, so that's not good. So the play is to attack with the Nightveil Sprite, get Gideon back down on 1 loyalty. Mission briefing. I guess you can get back a Murder, which makes you good enough for me. More Murder is good. More Murder. So we're going to save the Murder until the opponent figures out how to play their turn and blow up the Pride Mate at the last possible second, because they may make some plays that commit them to using the Pride Mate a certain way. We're going to play Thief of Sanity and hold the Murder up. So Thief of Sanity, very good to have on the board if we can start attacking in and stealing little creatures from our opponent. Maybe we can steal one of their Pride Mates, one of their jail spells. They find land number 4 for the Leonin War Leader. That is another creature we're likely going to need to murder. This thing makes 2/1/1 lifelink cat tokens that are attacking as soon as the War Leader itself attacks. Still, the opponent's attacks aren't great. Here they are giving Indestructible to the Pride Mate and passing. We can't play the Murder on their turn because of the Tithe Taker. I forgot about that too. 2 misplays this game. Ouch. Knock it off, CGB. You're trying to make a video showing people how to play decks. Don't screw it up so badly. So here the Thief of Sanity can kill the Gideon. The Nightveil Sprite can Surveil. I actually don't even know if that's worth it. The Thief of Sanity could also hit face, but I think killing Gideon is better than hitting face, at least right now.
I surrender.
And then we can afford to pay for the Murder if we pass here, so we'll pass. But as you see, Murder costs extra because of Tithe Taker's little ability. Gotta be smarter, gotta be smarter. Alright, before the opponent gets to enter the attack step. Wait, if they enter the attack step here, we block here, gain 4 life. Kill one of the tokens, the opponent hits us for 1, 2, 3, 4, and we murder something. I think that's a good deal because we don't really lose anything, and the opponent doesn't attack. So we're going to go ahead and murder the War Leader. It's the most threatening card if the opponent finds a way to get rid of the Cavalier. And with that, the opponent scoops it up. They don't want to see the Thief of Sanity start taking their cards and playing out the game for them. Alright. I like our hand. We've got some lands that we need and some early plays and some later plays. A lot of tap lands. On the draw, Loyal Pegasus can't attack or block alone. So the good news is this can't start beating me up until the opponent puts another creature with it. Unmoored Ego off the top. When the opponent starts on Loyal Pegasus, you can expect a very aggressive deck. And then a turn 2 Winged Words. Well, let's get our Nightveil Sprite on the battlefield to spar with these flying creatures. Our opponent likely runs some cards like Favorable Winds and Empyrean Eagle to make their flying creatures bigger than ours. And here's Cloud Conceer, 3 mana, 2/1 flyer, draw a card. So the opponent's getting ready to attack me with their flying creatures. Let's play our Thoughtbound Phantasm. And let's attack with our Nightveil Sprite, because it will grow the Phantasm, it will get us a Surveil to help us find the cards we need. If the opponent blocks, we might be able to bring the card we want back later with Cavalier of Night. And we don't need more tap lands, so a good Surveil there. If the opponent blocks, they don't get to attack us with their Cloud Concealer and Loyal Pegasus team. So they take the damage. Now, we have a tough decision. If we play a Dimir Guildgate, we can't use Tyrant Scorn, and we'll probably get attacked. But if we don't play, if we play the Island, we might not play our Cavalier of Night on time. But I think we have to make sure we live that long. So I'm going to leave mana open for the Tyrant Scorn here. If the opponent plays Empyrean Eagle, which is a 2/3 flyer that pumps up other flyers, we need to kill it. Instead, we see Favorable Winds, which is the other card I talked about, making their flyers bigger. If they try to go to combat here, we can blow up the Cloud Concealer. Now the Loyal Pegasus can't attack alone. The opponent casts Unsummon to return the Cloud Concealer to their hand, letting them replay it next turn and draw another card, which is annoying, but it's okay. And unfortunately for us, they did have another flyer, which that's really brutal. So I'm going to take away... I know I could take a Cloud Concealer from their hand, but they would still draw a card. I want to take Empyrean Eagle, which is the card that makes the deck really strong. And they don't have one in their hand. They have a whole bunch of card draw. And they have all 4 Eagles in their deck. Looking around at the rest of their deck, which is something you should get in the habit of. Check out their deck, see what they've got going on. Sprites, Terramanders, a lot of card draw, but no counter spells. Just flyers, Favorable Winds, and card draw, and a few Dungeon Geists. And we'll grab all those, throw them out of the deck. Play this. We could attack for the Surveil, but the opponent will kill our Nightveil Sprite, which I think is very bad. So let's not do that. We may need a block just to stay alive. In fact, I'm sure we'll need a block just to stay alive at this rate. We're falling very far behind. And I think what we want to do is block with the Nightveil Sprite when these creatures attack. Because then if we draw an untapped land off the top, Cavalier of Night gets the sprite back if it dies. Now, of course, we could also save it and get another Surveil if we can kill the opponent's only creature. Alright, I'm not going to block. There are 2 ways that could go. I think I'm going to take the line that gets me deeper in my deck. This Bolas' Citadel is not good against a deck that's attacking when we don't run any sweepers. The amount of times I've mentioned sweepers while playing this deck, you might get the idea that we need to add sweepers to the deck. I don't think you're wrong. Let's play Moo. And we're going to use the plus ability to make the Cloud Concealer lose flying until end of turn. And because this only bumps flying creatures, it goes all the way back to a 0/1. This lets the sprite attack, Surveil, try to find a good card for us, and grow the Thoughtbound Phantasm. We don't need that. I mean, we could play the Citadel with it, but I don't think the Citadel is going to help us very much. Or is the Citadel my only way back in the game? No. I think we need Cavalier of Gales. We need our own huge flying creature. We'll play this Guildgate and say go. I know that Moo is going to die. We can't expect to defend her against a bunch of flying swift creatures like this deck presents. It's not going to work out. So we knew she was not long for the world when we cast her. If you try too hard to protect your Planeswalker by throwing away your creatures, you leave yourself in an even worse position than when you started. That's not always true. Sometimes it's the right play to throw some blockers under the bus. But many times it's wrong.
My victory was washed away.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Here's the Terramander. With 3 spells in the graveyard, Terramander can become very large. And a Storm Tamer. The creatures are coming. And they are going to wreck us. Chart, of course, draws 2 more cards. I'm getting very jealous of the amount of card draw going on over here. Well, we drew the black mana anyway. Let's do it. We have 16 life. Let's hope this gets the job. Let's hope that this makes such huge plays that we get back in the game. A murder. All right, let's try to murder the Pteramander. The opponent can sacrifice the Siren Storm Tamer to protect the Pteramander. And there's a Nightveil Predator on top. All right, murder got countered. Nightveil Predator will drop us to 9, but make a 3/3 flying Death Touch. And then there's another one. Oh my goodness. This doesn't have lifelink though. This does. So when we play the Cavalier and try to get our life back, but playing this, a giant flyer, knocking ourselves all the way to 3, that's so gutsy. The opponent could take us to 1, and if they have an unsummon, we lose the game. But let's be gutsy. Interesting that we have all these flyers in the deck. We just didn't have them in time. Like if we had played this on 4 and this on 5, this deck would have a horrible time beating us, but that's not the way it played out. Our opponent shocks and plays Hallowed Fountain. What else will they do? All they have to do is return something, and they do. All right, they got it. Now all they have to do is attack. Let's hope they don't feel the need to BM and flex, but some do, some don't. Yeah, just make sure. Math is hard. All right, I don't know why they're taking so long, but I don't know why people do this. Just attack with your creatures. You did it. I hope you enjoyed this video with the House Dimir deck. I always enjoy a good blue-black deck, but I really like blue-black control. I talked about sweepers a lot in this video because without it, the blue-black control deck falls behind too much and can't really compete, as you saw in multiple games. So if you want to craft the control build, you gotta craft Rituals Soot, Cry the Canarium. And we might do that in a future video because I always like playing some blue-black control. So watch for that coming down the pipeline, and come back for some more free-to-play CGB shenanigans. We've got a few more decks to tune, and then we've got a lot more crafting and a lot more ladder videos to make. Thank you for watching this video. As always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.